Hello and welcome to November's Inner Sanctum webinar with special guest teacher Natalie Sudman, who is the author of The Application of Impossible Things, one of my favorite all-time books about lots of things, but she showcases her amazing journey working in Iraq as a contractor in Iraq and being blown up by a roadside bomb and having an amazing NDE experience, an extensive NDE experience, and we're going to go into that today, but we're going to talk about some of the possibilities available to us, like the application, like how do we apply impossible things in this life. So I'm so excited to introduce you to Natalie today, who I'll just get her to share a little bit of her journey, and then you can all jump on and ask her questions, and we'll take it from there. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Karen. Thanks for having me.
And I have to say, Natalie is also the most exquisite artist. If you go to nataliesudman.com, you'll see her art. And just behind her, she's at a friend's place at the moment, but just behind her, you'll see one of her paintings. Obviously, her friend is as much of a fan of her art as me. I was just saying, I want her art on my walls. But Natalie, let's start at the beginning. So I'm just going to give people a little bit of insight into you. You're already very spiritual, already chatting to your mob or your guides, and downloading and having this lovely spiritual life, but you decided it might be fun to go over to a war zone and work over. Let's talk about that decision.
That decision? I was working as an archaeologist for a federal agency, and I was applying for jobs overseas, and I wasn't getting anything. I wasn't finding anything. And then there was a call out to all federal agencies for people to come help the Corps of Engineers down on Hurricane Katrina cleanup. So I volunteered to go do that. So I went down to Louisiana and Mississippi for altogether for about 2.5 months or so. And while I was down there, I met a lot of people who had worked in other parts of the world. And so when I got home, I got a call from one of them and said, hey, we've got jobs in Iraq if you want to go to Iraq. If you want to go? And I said, oh, sure. I hung up the phone and went, what did I just say? But I was curious. So I thought, well, go ahead, try it, see what happens. So that's how I ended up going over there. And I was not a contractor. The military actually has quite a few civilians working for it, under it. So I was actually an employee of the Army, which is the reason I say that is because it's quite different. The people who work for the Army make a lot less money, and we are not tax exempt. And so we didn't have it quite as posh as some of the contractors did, but anyway, that's how I got over there.
Yeah. So you're riding in a truck, and after a busy day, you're exhausted. What happens next?
So we had gone out, and I'd gone out in the field outside the wire with 3 other colleagues. So 2 of us were in one truck, 2 in another truck, and then we each had guards, and we had a lead truck and a gun truck. All the guards were in those trucks too. So we had visited a few construction sites, and we were on our way home, and I was tired, and I was bored too. Riding in trucks with ballistic glass, and it's just not that interesting after a while. So I was kind of head on hand, half asleep, and all of a sudden I was not. Mm-hmm. And, you want me to just keep going?
Yep.
Okay. So I was in the truck, and then I was not. I was standing on a sort of stage with just an array of beings all around me, as if I was in a stadium or something. And all those beings, we were all communicating. I was downloading information to them, is how I describe that. And they were accepting that information and processing it, digesting it, whatever. And this transfer of information was like a transfer. It wasn't me talking to them or something. It was more like just projecting this information to them. And then they were taking it in like a download or something. And I'm just going to tell you the bare bones right now. So when I was done kind of downloading that information, I told them that I wasn't going to go back. I had no interest in going back to this world. It didn't interest me at all. I was done. And they communicated that was fine. But what if they helped me out doing this, or, you know, kind of helped me set up doing this, or if I did some stuff for them. And it sounded kind of interesting. So in the same way that I just jumped right in and said, yeah, to Iraq, I did it again with these people. I said, oh yeah, okay, I'll go back. So as soon as I kind of just agreed to what they suggested, then what I call blink. I just blinked. I was in this place, kind of this stadium atmosphere, and then I was not. I was in what I describe as just kind of this no space, no time. The space that was kind of a velvety black, and in this space at first I didn't have a form. I didn't perceive myself as having a form, or certainly not a human form. It was like I was consciousness, and at first there was a couple of beings there that were kind of tuning my consciousness, or it was kind of like they were mechanics in a car shop or something. They were just tinkering with things and tuning things up. And then after a while, and it was also, I call it the deep rest environment, because I don't know how long I was there, but it was deeply, deeply restful and rejuvenating. And I just felt like I just got more and more and more relaxed and felt better and better and better and better. And at some point I started to sort of page through my life. And, you know, people talk about a life review, but for me, it felt more like just kind of a leisurely flip through the photo book or something, you know, and maybe I'll talk later about what I was thinking at the time, but there wasn't judgment in the way that you might think, or I've heard some other people describe their life review. Yeah. It wasn't like that for me. It was very relaxing. It was very interesting, but there was no judgment there. And so when I kind of finished all that and felt like I was fully rested, then I blinked back to that stadium environment. And it's like we were exchanging some more information about what I had agreed to do. And I talk about this level being kind of the architect level of the project that I had taken on. You know, this is the big view kinds of things that we were discussing. And then when we were done, I blinked again, and I was with then two other beings, one of whom I knew really well, and the other one I felt like was kind of learning from us or something, or just didn't have the level of skill. But we were looking down at the truck, the blown up truck, and us in the truck from about a 45-degree angle and up above the truck. And I could see the truck and everybody in it as physical objects, but I could also see us as energy organizations. Mm. And I call this the healing environment because we started changing my injuries. So we would kind of do the equivalent of waving a hand and setting different kinds of injuries in the body. And then some of them were very, very funny to us. We thought that was hilarious, you know, to like give her brain damage, which, you know, is not funny when we're in a human body. But from there, it was almost like planning a movie. Yes. Oh, let's have this character do this or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, so we played around with that for a while, and then I was like, okay, quit fooling around. We just need to do what I'm going to do. So I just set the injuries that I had. And as soon as I had done that, then I blinked again, and I was kind of in between time or something. I was right. It's kind of, I was standing right next to the truck, And I had like 8 or 9 other beings with me here.
Yeah.
And we were, again, discussing what I had agreed to do and how this was all going to work. But we were now discussing it instead of from the architect level. If you think of it as discussing it now from the level of the construction workers who have the hammers and, and the saws, it's a different kind of viewpoint and different kinds of concerns. Mm-hmm. So after we had finished kind of talking that over, then I just I popped back into my body.
Right.
And the truck was still rolling down the road.
Right. Wow. So you were out for what you describe as like a blink, a couple of seconds.
It can't have been very long. It can't have been more than,
You know what I love about this is how it talks about the nature of time, in that we're in an environment where time is actually an illusion, but we are in agreement to this illusion that we call time. And actually, how we can play with time. I play with time all the time. And when we're stressing how time flies, and when we're relaxed how time slows, and it's beautiful to play with time. I've played with time many times. I've been in a car which I know takes me half an hour to get from one point to another, and I'm in peak hour traffic, so it should take me 45 minutes. And if I turn the music up really loud and sing all the way there, I'm there in about 10 or 15 minutes, which is impossible. It's like time,
Yeah.
And another thing I love about this is the nature of the agreements that we have, and how we agree to, a lot of it before we come, and how we're in agreement from our broader perspective to a lot of what we're going through. Because we see the trauma and the tragedy is so beneficial.
Or not trauma. We don't see it as trauma from that point of view. It's like another way I often describe it is a child falls down and scrapes her knee a little bit, and goes screaming and crying to her mom, end of the world, and the mom goes, oh no, and kisses it, and the little kid stops crying. It's like, oh, now it's okay. It's like, you don't have the same perspective.
Exactly.
So, we're the little kids going, oh my God, it lasts forever. It's going to be horrible. And yet, once we leave the body, we're like, oh, that was just a blink. That was nothing. It was not a problem. So, and that's not to minimize what we go through here on Earth. It feels real. And when we're in it, it is real because we're in it.
Yeah.
If you're playing in a play, then you're putting yourself in that play, and you're playing it to the hilt in order to make it a good play, and we're kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I also, I do psychic readings for people. So I get a lot of people asking, well, what is this about? Why is this happening in my life? And sometimes I get the answer that you don't need to know that. That's not going to help you. That's not going to help you. We want to know what's going on next. We want to know, what is this all about? And sometimes it's not going to help us to know that. I don't remember a lot of the stuff, whatever I said that I was going to come down here and do. I remember one thing from that right now. And it doesn't bother me. That's okay. It's like, you don't sit down to play a game of, say, Monopoly with a friend, and someone else comes in and says, okay, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get all these properties. You're going to get all these properties. You're going to get all this money, and this is going to happen, and then you're going to win. And then that person gets up and walks away. You're going to look at your friend and go, well, now we don't have to play.
Exactly.
I play because I know what's going to happen. So sometimes, even an experience like mine is not necessarily going to help me with some things. I've also had people say, well, your life must be so much easier. I'm like, why do you think that? It's not any different than yours or anybody else's. The only thing that's changed is the way I think about things.
Yeah.
And anybody can change the way they think about things.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people who have, as you've coined, the spiritually transformative experience, everybody thinks because they've had this amazing experience that they've got all the answers. But as you say, It doesn't work that way. It's like watching a movie and somebody tells you the end of the movie. It's like,
yeah.
You're like, what happens? What happens? When I watch movies with my daughter, she's saying, what's happening? What happened next? What happens? What happens? I'm like, watch the movie. Stop asking me what happens.
Right.
But that's the mind, that's what we do. We want to know the next step. And there are so many millions of teachers on the planet that are saying, don't worry about the next step, stay in the moment. Right. That's where the juice is. Stop asking what's happening next. Stop going to the psychic and saying, read my future. Like, be in the moment. Eckhart Tolle, be in the moment. Be in the moment. That's where the juice is.
Yeah.
It's
one of the things that I often tell people is instead of asking yourself why, ask yourself, how do I best handle this right now? I must, if this has come to me, just assume that I know everything I need to know about that right now. So just handle it the best way I know how right now. And then, if it happens again, I'll know a little bit more and I'll handle it a little bit better or whatever. Or I may, if I handle it right now in the best way I know how, I may have just done everything I need to do and it'll never happen again. You don't know, but all you've got is now.
Yeah.
So instead of why, and trying to figure it all out, how about just going, well, how do I best handle this today, right now?
You know what else I love about your story? I love how it talks about the nature of the support that we have from that non-physical realm. Just because we can't necessarily see them or even hear them or feel them, I think everybody can actually. I think everyone can feel them, but our logical brains can't. They're there, and then, as you say, you stood on a stage and there were thousands of them. A lot of people are saying, do I have a guardian angel or do I have a spirit guide? And the answer is, well, actually, thousands of them. And I believe everybody does. It's some capacity. You might not be aware of the thousands from this perspective. You might not even be aware from the next perspective. You might leave the body and go to another perspective. And then you might go to another realm and another realm and another realm. But, when you're kind of in that expansive arena, you'll see that it's, we're one with just everyone, everything and everyone. But also something that you said about the downloading, because a lot of people think that, this ability to be telepathic and feel and download like they do in the Matrix, download the information and upload information like a computer does. But we're doing that all the time here in this physical realm. We don't have to be dead to do that.
Whether we know it or not, we are. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want to speak a little bit about what that felt like?
Oh, what it felt like? I never thought about describing that. Actually, it just felt really normal. I mean, I'm not sure how to describe that. It's as easy as thinking. You think something and you think conceptually. I actually think that most people start out thinking conceptually. We don't start out thinking in sentences and thinking in words. We think in concepts. And I think that that's kind of what, for instance, meditation practice will bring us back to, is that kind of perception, kind of relaxing the mind and putting it back into that conceptual perception. I think that's more complete, and I think it's it gets you out of the sort of dualistic kind of thinking and the linear thinking. So it's more creative and as far as what it felt like, I guess the only thing I can say is it just felt normal. That probably doesn't answer your question very well. But
tell you what else I love about it. The story, when I read the book, the thing that just stuck out for me, and I think that it'll be different for everybody who reads the book because there's so much in the book, is that co-creative partnership we have with our mob, our team. And everyone thinks that when they're talking about deliberate creation that we're creating the good stuff in our lives. Everyone's talking about how to create the good stuff, but we're creating all of it. We're creating all of it. And so when you were there with your buddy, as you've described him before, and his little student, you said there was someone there that was like watching. It could have been a student, it could have been a teacher, who knows? Like, I don't know if you remember that, but somebody else was watching. and you were designing your injuries and having a look at how that would play out on a certain timeline. What was fascinating to me is that you were playing with the timelines and you were looking down a life with that certain injury and how that would play out in your life. And then you'd go, okay, let's swap it up. Let's give her another one. That just fascinated. That whole blink moment of you being in that room where you were designing your injuries just fascinated me.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. It's that, like you said, that seeing, setting the injuries and then seeing almost like in a holographic, again, conceptual whole in a single moment, seeing the whole lifetime that would result from that. That's interesting. But what I also like to point out is that, choosing my injuries, I didn't choose to be uninjured. I could have, but, and we think, what is healing? We would be like, oh, well, healing or being in alignment with my whole self and my reason for being. If I was that way, I wouldn't be hurt and I wouldn't be sick. Well, that's not always true. We often think, oh, that person is hurting. Oh, it's because they're thinking wrong, or they haven't dealt with this emotional problem, or, we diagnose all these people. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know, but we've got it in our heads. There's these rules. Oh, if you're sick, then, you've got an emotional thing you haven't dealt with, or a spiritual thing you haven't dealt with. What if that's not it? What if this is a gift? What if this injury or this illness is exactly what you came here to experience?
Yeah.
Very different kind of way of thinking.
It is a different way of thinking. Yeah, because from that non-physical perspective, we don't know what it feels like to be in pain, or we don't know what it feels like to feel separated, and we don't know what it feels like
it may just
to have to forget.
We need to go.
We need to what?
It may just take us exactly where we need to go. It may be the most efficient way to get to where we want to be. To know what we want to know, or to touch the people we want to touch, or, whatever. It may not be that you as a being need to experience that pain, but that pain is just part of the experience. And for instance, giving birth to a baby, you don't say, well, this is because I need to experience some pain. No, you go, I'm having a baby, and that's just a side effect. That's just there. It's just part of it. You just deal with it. I also am wary of saying, well, that's true of everybody. Some people, the point is not in the trauma. The point is in the baby that you happen to go through some trauma to get, And some people, there's a lot of, the whole gift is within the pain, or within the journey through that pain. I think everybody's doing different things. It's a big world. Infinity is infinite. If we're all doing the same thing, how boring would that be? I think it would be pretty.
I know. Has anyone got any questions for Natalie? Cecil looks like she's about to launch into a question.
Always have questions. I was wondering, when you were in the other realm, looking at this environment we are in here, did you get the expression that what we are doing here is a school, something to develop the soul? Or did you get more a feeling of this is a play, and we are learning to create through our thoughts and feelings more and more consciously?
Good question. I think that at that time, my perception of this world was, first of all, it's a choice. And, the way we think about like a school or learning is maybe different from the concept that I sensed. But I would say that it's about exploration, maybe would be a better word than school. About exploration and expansion, of the self and community and form and all that is in any, in all of its, in any one of its expressions. It's another way of experiencing the all. It's another way of extending the all that is, extending the self in order to extend the expression of the all that is. So is it a school? Well, I think exploration for me is more accurate than learning, exactly, if that makes sense.
Definitely, because from that perspective, from that broader perspective, we seem to have access to anything we need to. We have access to the knowledge, to the information, but not to the experience of it. Like, you could read a book or do a class and someone could teach you and you could go, I totally get that. But then when you experience it physically, like, yes, to trying to describe to someone who can't see what seeing looks like, or to someone who can't taste what the taste of an orange tastes like, that experience, that exploration of experience in 3D and third dimension is that.
Yeah, if someone tells you something, some experience they had, then you go, oh wow, yeah, I kind of get that. I can kind of feel it in my gut or whatever. You watch a movie and you go, oh yeah, I get that. But that you don't really get it. I mean, if you then live something like that, you get it in a whole different way. It becomes your vocabulary.
Yeah.
It doesn't just become something you read about or intellectually understand. It becomes a part of you, of your very essence. And so you know it differently. You own it differently. Yeah. And so when you come and have have an experience in this kind of reality, then you know yourself and your expression in a different way than you would if you didn't come here.
But as you had that experience, coming back to this realm and having the memories of it, the world for you is very different from a person who hasn't had the same experience of the other realm.
Yeah, it probably is. But I would also say that the longer I'm away from that experience, it gets easier and easier to sort of get pulled back into this reality, back into the play, And I can still, I still know the other reality, but it's like, yeah, I know it, but I'm in this play. I came here to be in this play. Why not just be in this play in some ways? I think that more people are aware of the sort of expanded reality than we may think. I think a lot of people are aware of it and don't talk about it, or they're aware of it in ways that they use a different language for it. I have a friend who's a long distance runner, and she talks about, getting into the zone. And, when she's upset about something, she goes out running, she gets back into the zone. And by the end of the time she's running, she's clear. And she's talking about the same thing, but we're just using a different language. She's remembered perspective. She's emptied her mind and kind of found that other perspective, but she calls it in the zone. That's great. It's great. It works, And I think most of us have experiences like that. And we actually know what everybody else is talking about. We just use different languages to talk about it.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, Roberta works with people and relationships. How is knowing what we're talking about, help us in our relationships, both in our love relationships and in our relationships with our family and in our relationships with, strangers, and our relationships with, because, we're in relationship with everything. We're in relationship to the cat. We're in relationship to the computer. We're in relationship to the weather.
Yeah. I love black cats.
How does it help us in relationships, knowing about this thing? Yeah.
Well, okay, so a couple of things. So I think that a lot of times when I still get angry at people and frustrated and go, oh, I don't like that person at all. I don't love everybody. Ooh. I just don't, there's people I don't like, whatever. But now when I feel that way, instead of thinking, instead of maybe thinking that that's all they are, is that behavior or that personality, it's possible for me to say, wait, this is what they're playing. This is the role they're playing. That doesn't mean that's who they are. It's even possible for me, maybe because of some other skills, I don't know, but I can kind of sometimes tune into that bigger being of theirs and find that kind of affection for them, or at least respect. At least say, well, they are also part of this, all that is. They are related to me. They're my relations. Yeah. So I can dislike them, but I can't condemn them. I can't deny them.
Yeah.
I have to say they are. And as soon as I say they are, instead of they are this, they are that, they are whatever, instead of, if I cut all that other stuff out and just say they are, then I go, oh, okay. They're legit, It's a different way of perceiving someone or something. I mean, you can do the same thing with a tree, it doesn't matter what you're in relationship to. Another thing, okay, so that's one thing. The other thing I want to say is that, people talk about, be in your heart, open your heart, love everybody. And I say, you're never going to love everybody. You're just not going to like everybody. That's the way it is, love, like, whatever. Instead, if you can go into that heart space of yours and find your affinity for yourself and get to know yourself and love yourself, all the rest of it is going to be taken care of with no effort. It's all the rest of that is going to be a side effect of loving yourself and liking yourself and appreciating yourself.
Yeah.
When you come to that place, you're not going to be afraid of anybody. You're not going to feel threatened by anybody. You're not going to be irritated by anybody. They'll just be like, huh, I don't care to be around that person, but whatever, you're going to, a lot of that frustration and that competition that we get into in relationships will be gone.
Mm-hmm. Now, that's one of those messages that you need to experience to understand, because I can't tell you how many times people said, love yourself. Like, I've been listening to that for 40 years, like, love yourself, love yourself, love yourself. And people are like, okay, I'm going to love myself. I'll go buy some more shoes, or I'll go and have a massage.
Yeah, that's why I use different words. For instance, I say affinity for yourself. Find that affinity for yourself. Mm-hmm. Find that kind of place where you resonate with yourself, where you're like, oh, I feel even more like myself.
Yeah.
Where you can look at the bad things about yourself, or the hard things, or the weak things, and say, you know what? I'm not crazy about those things, but they're mine. Yeah. They're all mine. And go, it's okay. Some of the crap comes with the good stuff. It's okay. Yeah. I like myself. When you come to that place, then you're going to know yourself in a different way and experience yourself in a different way. And when you do that, you experience everything around you in a different way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think for me, it was listening to people like you, Natalie, and many, many others. I have not had an NDE. I've had plenty of transformative experiences, the spiritual experiences. But it was knowing myself as soul, and not my body, personality, my mind, or my thoughts, but as a courageous soul that came into this third dimensional environment. Because I reckon you got to be courageous to come here, because where we come from, Like when I listen to people who speak about heaven and afterlife and where we come from, is just so incredibly, sublimely, incredible, like beautiful love, light, liquid love, light, whatever, unconditional love. And we come into this contrasting, polarized environment. I'm thinking, now that's a brave soul. Like that's someone who's climbing Mount Everest.
I agree.
And
wow.
I just think, you know, the love for that decision makes you love yourself more, I think. And then to go through what we go through, the illness and the traumas and the death and all that stuff that we go through, just the love to be up for that. Yeah, so for me, loving myself was not about nurturing the body or even nurturing the brain or the mind or learning it. It was about getting to know myself as soul and those decisions, like why I came and what I was up for. And to me, that made me love myself so much more. And then thinking every 7 billion people on the planet made that decision. And so I could love them as much as I could love me. That decision to come here, I could love them as much as I could love me. Yeah, that's what did it for me. After 40 years of trying to love myself, that's what did it for me.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we think that it's about self-identification. How do you identify yourself? I am whatever. I'm a white woman living in Arizona in the United States, or I am a soul and I'm not my body. I'm not my emotions. I'm not my thoughts. I am a being having those emotions and experiencing through those thoughts and experiencing through that body. And when you make that distinction and when you actually, you know, kind of remind yourself over and over, at some point you're going to have the experience of that and you're going to go, oh, I get it. You know, I really believe that. I believe that if you practice, you'll get it. At some point you'll get it.
Yeah.